Hello there guys, and welcome to another one of my reviews. Today we are going to take a closer look at the brand new Renault Megane E-Tech Electric. So what is it? This is basically the new Megane. As unbelievably as it may seem, the popular car from Renault is being retired when it comes to internal combustion engines. Now we will see some of them still going for a while until this car actually hits production lines around the world in Renault's factories, but it will be slowly phased out. And since we already had a hybrid version on certain markets around the world that bore the name Megane E-Tech, this car has to be called Megane E-Tech Electric. So it is the brand new Megane, and I know from stills and certain angles it may seem like a crossover, but trust me, it really isn't. Now, seeing me next to it, it should put things into perspective. This car is actually pretty small in terms of its size. So it's 4.2 meters long and almost 1.8 meters wide. So it's pretty compact overall. But the fact that it is built on an electric platform means that the designers had a lot more to say in how this car looks and were able to position the wheels as close to its extremities as possible. So you will notice the short overhangs up front and in the back, and that was done on purpose to make this car look a bit more aggressive, and it works. I mean, it absolutely looks really well. Up front, you'll notice that the front fascia has been completely redesigned. It has almost nothing to do with the old Megane. You'll notice the new Renault badge, which is the new brand identity. You'll notice the new headlamps, the new character lines for the daytime running lights, and it looks really good. This car is also fitted with the iconic package, so that means it has a golden insert over here in the front part of the car that actually looks pretty good. Now, the car we're driving is a top spec model, so we do have this blue color on it, and you can get a contrasting roof for it, and you can get this contrasting roof in 3 colors. Right now we have it in black, which doesn't really set itself apart a lot from the blue body of the car, but it still makes a difference. Now, a bigger difference is made by the wheels in this case, because the Megane can come with 18-inch wheels as standard or with 20-inch wheels like we have on this tester right here. And while they do look good and they do fill up the wheel arches really well, they will take away some of the comfort of the car, and they will increase the spending when it comes to changing the tires. So it is really something you might want to consider when buying this car. I personally would go for the 18-inch wheels, but I understand if you want to go for the 20-inch ones. So another interesting feature on this car is the fact that the door handles are flush with the sides of the car. They are embedded into the doors, and we have a door handle hidden inside the C-pillar over here. So it's a really nifty trick that we've been seeing on a number of electric cars recently, mostly because this approach, including the front door handle and this hidden one over here, this approach does make the car a bit more aerodynamic. So car manufacturers are doing everything in their power to squeeze every single kilometer of range out of these cars. Moving to the back of the car, you'll notice the taillights that are absolutely magnificent. They have a really cool design, a mesh design. We have a light bar connecting the 2 rear lights, and of course the new Renault logo and the new Megane logo. As for the boot, well, it can store up to 440 liters of stuff. It's decent enough, well within the measurements of the segment, but it is disappointing that Renault didn't offer an extra storage space under the hood. The only thing you'll find over there is the electric motor and some wires and stuff. Now let's hop inside and see how things go down in there. The interior of the new Megane E-Tech Electric is, of course, as you would expect, completely new. It comes with a new design, new technology, everything is brand new and adapted to this new reality we live in, where electric cars will eventually become the norm. So, what are we talking about? Well, it's a new layout for the dashboards, pretty simplified. It relies heavily on displays, and depending on the car, the kind of car you get, the model you get, you will have either a 12-inch or a 9-inch screen for the multimedia system, R-Link. As for the instrument cluster, it's standard at 12 inches, 12.3 inches, and the instrument cluster actually looks really good, has a very good graphics, very good and fluid transitions, and plenty of info to choose from. You have 3 available views for it, and you can actually have the map displayed right in front of you in the instrument cluster. As for this screen over here, 12 inches seems like it's a bit too much. I mean, I do appreciate the size of the screen, and I do appreciate the fact that it is in a portrait setup, but I think the 9-inch version could be enough and just as good. I don't think you need such a huge screen anyway. But on top of the range models, this comes as standard, so it depends on how you're going to configure your car. We still have physical buttons at the bottom of the screen for climate functions, which I thoroughly appreciate. Some of the functions are still in the screen. For example, activating the heated steering wheel is done pressing a button here, and the same goes for the heated seats. But overall, most of the functions for the climate settings are reachable using these buttons. As for the system itself, it uses Android OS. It's not the first car I've driven with this system, but it is the most polished one, even though this is a pre-production car, so it's not a finished version, if you will. There are still some bugs over here. For example, sometimes the car forgets about the profiles it's supposed to show, or sometimes it just resets the infotainment system. But those will be ironed out once the cars enter production and start being delivered. The system itself moves very well. It's really fast, really intuitive, and you can actually use Google's Assistant in order to ask it to do a number of things. For example, hey Google, please call mom.
For that, you'll need to share your contacts with the car. You can do that in your phone's Bluetooth settings. Otherwise, try disconnecting your phone from the car and then reconnecting again.
So as you can see, you don't really have to be a native speaker in order for the car to understand the command. It didn't perform my command because I didn't allow the system to read my contacts, my phone contacts, but it works really well, and it recognizes your speech rather easily. And you can adjust a number of things in here, and you can add apps from the Play Store directly into the car. Now, what I should mention about that is that the car comes with an onboard SIM card. It's a 4G SIM card, and depending on the market you're in, the cost for running that will vary. Over here, it's included for 6 months in up to 3 gigabytes of data. Right under the screen, we have a wireless charging port, and over here, a huge center console with a lot of storage space for a number of things. It's adjustable too. You can use these bumpers over here to adjust just how you can configure this setup over here. And we have a huge center console, and yeah, I really like it. Now, I should also mention the seats. This is the iconic version, so it comes with leather seats, but on the other 2 models, Techno and Equilibre, you get textile seats. I mean, at least part of it is textile, because on Techno models you have leather sides, but that textile finish is done using recycled plastics. And Renault says there's plenty of recycled plastic in this cabin in order to make the car more sustainable. Furthermore, Renault says that 95% of this car is recyclable at the end of its life cycle. So that's pretty impressive, including the batteries, which have been designed without rare earths, rare metals, in order to make make it as recyclable as possible. The dashboard is wrapped in some fake leather with contrasting stitching, and it looks decent. And these are supposed to be wood trims that they extend on the dashboard as well, but they don't really feel like wood. They feel more like plastic. So I don't know. The materials are rather harsh on the top end of the front doors, which is weird, but they are soft in the middle portion of them and then hard again at the bottom. The door pockets are filled up with a nice material, textile material, and you can find the same material on the, it's a carpet basically. So I didn't want to use the word carpet, but it is what it is. And the seats on this model also come with a massaging function, which is pretty nice. Now, the steering wheel is perfectly designed. It's flush at the top and at the bottom, and it feels great to the touch. But one complaint I do have sitting in the seat is the visibility. Now, looking in the rear view mirror, you don't really see a lot because that rear window is pretty darn small. You also have the headrests over there, and they do take a bunch of your visibility. The rear C pillars are pretty small, pretty thick as well, as are the A pillars, and they do obstruct your vision. So visibility isn't great. Luckily, you can get a 360-degree camera on this car, and also a camera at the back which transforms your rear view mirror into a display. I don't have that option on the car, but you can get it later on. One last mention is the Harman Kardon sound system, which is more than decent. I think it's the best sound system I've ever heard on a Renault so far. It has 410 watts and it's really nice. You can actually hear a lot of the music on the outside of the car as well, because the sound installation inside the doors isn't brilliant, but the rest of the car is. I'm going to talk about that when we hop behind the wheel. As for the room in the back, I fit in there. Even with my seat, with the driver's seat adjusted in my comfortable driving position, I still fit in the back. I do touch the headliner just a tiny bit, but it's not a huge problem. It's impressive how much room you have inside this car, considering its exterior size. Now, let's hop on the road and see how this car drives and talk about a number of other things. When you get behind the wheel of the Megane E-Tech Electric, you notice a couple of things. The first thing you're gonna notice, apart from the poor visibility, is the fact that the suspension is absolutely brilliant, including on these 20-inch wheels. It does its job absolutely perfect. It's quiet, comfortable, and there's nothing more to say about it. The rear axle is a multi-link setup, and that contributes a lot to this overall feeling. And the front axle is also a multi-link one, so you do have the perfect setup for a car in terms of comfort and performance. And when you drive it a bit harder, the car does lean a bit, but the center of gravity is a bit lower than in a conventional Renault Megane, and it makes you feel a bit sportier than you would expect. So you feel like you're in control all the time, and apart from an occasional traction breakaway, for example, the front wheels will squeal a bit at times. Apart from that, the car handles brilliantly. Let's talk about the options you get for the Megane Electric. So there will be two powertrains available, one with 130 horsepower and one with 218 horsepower or 215 brake horsepower. The first one has 250 Newton meters of torque, and the one we're driving, the 220 horsepower version, has 300 Newton meters of torque. In terms of batteries, you get a 40 kilowatt hour battery and a 60 kilowatt hour battery. Depending on the market you're in, some of these combinations won't be available. For example, in certain markets, the 130 horsepower engine on the front axle is available with both the 40 kilowatt hour and the 60 kilowatt hour battery. In other markets, that's not a possibility. So if you want to get the 60 kilowatt hour battery, you have to get the 220 horsepower motor. That's what we have over here, the 220 horsepower, 218 horsepower motor and the 60 kilowatt hour battery. And a This combination is supposed to offer you a range of up to 470 kilometers with a full charge. Now, I did my usual real-life range test with this car. You'll find a link over here, and I already published it on my channel. The results were a bit different this time around. Not exactly what Renault claimed. Not that that would happen all the time. Now, you should understand that these claims from these manufacturers for electric cars are supposed to be interpreted as a best case scenario, the most you can squeeze out of a battery, not a guaranteed range for your car. It's the same as you would get in a conventional internal combustion car, where the fuel consumption quoted in your user manual is not exactly the one you would get. It's like the best case scenario as well. So what I got with this car, you can see the video with my real life range test. Basically an average of about 350 kilometers will be doable with no issues whatsoever, especially around town. You can get 350 kilometers out of a full charge easily. So that takes care of that. But what about recharging? Well, I have a couple of maybe disappointing news. Well, the problem is these cars come with a 7.4 kilowatt charger as standard. You can upgrade to 22 kilowatts on alternative current or on AC, or you can go up to 130 kilowatts on a CCS charger, a direct current charger. The problem is the 130 kilowatt charger is not available on the 40 kilowatt hour battery cars. I don't know exactly why, but it's quite unusual. And depending on the market you're in, you can get the 22 kilowatt charger for the 40 kilowatt car, which should replenish your battery in about 2 hours, which is more than decent. As standard, the car comes with a 7.4 kilowatt cable available. If you want to use a 22 kilowatt charger, you have to get an optional 22 kilowatt cable for it. So you need to keep that in mind. It's very important, because otherwise you'll connect to your AC outlet when you're trying to charge and you'll see only 7.4 kilowatts being drawn by the car because of the cable. What's interesting is that you don't get the 11 kilowatt hour charger on any car at any price point, which is really weird. I guess it has a lot to do with Renault's way of selling this car. It's forcing you to get an upper echelon model. It's forcing you to get the 60 kilowatt version. As for the driving experience, well, as I said, the suspension is absolutely brilliant. And when you put the car in sport mode, the throttle response improves a lot. And you can actually have fun behind the wheel of this car. It's not going to be a Nürburgring winner. It does 100 kilometers an hour from standstill in this configuration in 7.4 seconds, and the top speed, no matter what kind of car you get, what configuration you go for, is 160 kilometers an hour. And that was done in order to preserve the battery and offer you a longer range, but it's going to be enough for most people. This is not exactly a highway cruiser per se. But it will keep its weight in check rather nicely. What's interesting is that this car has the slimmest battery in the industry, so it's only 11 centimeters tall, and it is water cooled and heated. That will help out a lot. So the battery has a higher density than in the Zoe, and it's more compact. Even though it has 60 kilowatt hours of capacity, it only tips the scale at 395 kilos, so it's really light. The weight of the car is 1.6 tons, which is also pretty nice. It's not a huge difference compared to a regular Megane, which tips the scale at about 1.4 tons. It's only 200 kilos extra, and this is a electric car, so all things considered, it's nicely done. I already mentioned that the motors and the batteries don't use rare earths, so it will be a highly recyclable car at the end of its production span. All things considered, I really liked the Megane, and I think it's going to be a bestseller, especially considering the price tags it's going to have. Over here where I'm testing it, the cheapest you can get one is 21,000 euros with some governmental funding for it. So that's really, really cheap in my book. Prices start at 33,000. But they will vary depending on the market you're in. Overall, I really liked the car. I think it's very comfortable, very spacious for its size, and very quiet. I have to mention that because Renault went an extra step in order to keep you as cocooned as possible. So we have, while I was driving the car, I didn't feel any terrible noises coming from specific parts of the car. The windshield is very well sound insulated, the side windows, and the undercarriage of the car, because Renault deployed a special treatment which basically uses sound insulation that's positioned in between the floor of the car, the exterior floor of the car, and the batteries. So it makes the underbelly of the car really quiet. The wheel wells have been well insulated and so on. So it's a really quiet car even at higher speeds. The one area where I did notice some precarities is in the doors, sort of speak, because if you're listening to music at a higher volume and you get out of the car, you will notice that with the door open or closed, there isn't a huge difference in how much an innocent bystander can hear coming in from your vehicle. So that's interesting. But overall, it's a well insulated car. So to be honest, you probably might have already noticed that I really like this car. I think it's going to be a best seller. Sure, there are some areas where things could have been done a bit better. Some plastics are rather cheap, but they say they come from recycled plastic, so we can forgive them for that. Furthermore, these plastic bits are recyclable, so as long as they can recycle them after the end of this car's life cycle, I'm good with that. It could have been a bit more efficient. That's not an issue though. The average energy consumption during my time with the car, recorded by the car's onboard computers, has been about 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered, which is pretty nice. It adds up to almost 400 kilometers of range on average. So yeah, I want to know what you guys think about it. Let me know in the comment section below. I'm very curious to see your reaction to this video. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and of course, subscribe to this channel to keep it alive and encourage me to do more videos. Until next time, don't forget to feed your passions. Ciao.